Welcome to Ask Rabbit ProRevenge, where mean Karen eats her words and gets fired. I have some awesome stories for you today. Let's jump into it. This first post is titled, How I Ended a Karen's Retail HR Career. Background. This was about 6 years ago now. At the end of high school, and for a couple years afterwards, I worked at a higher-end grocery store chain in the Midwest. I had worked my way up to the service desk position where we sold cigarettes, lotto tickets, high theft risk items like baby formula, and settled coupon disputes and refunds. Quite frankly, I loved my job. All the coworkers got together great, but we had this terrifying HR manager who is the Karen of this story. She sported the classic Karen haircut, very intimidating presence, and had a very forced cheeriness. And I believed she was a raging alcoholic, but that's neither here nor there. She basically was the only storm cloud at this job. Behind the service desk, we had a broom and storage closet. Karen was truly a force to be reckoned with, and everyone feared being in her line of fire. She would nitpick employees on everything she could. Myself and the other service desk employees had taken to using the broom closet to store personal belongings as it was safer than the break room. Things went missing sometimes. Kids are dumb. When Karen discovered we were storing our bags and lunches there, she made a point to pull us aside and inform us that this closet was not, under any circumstances, to be used as personal lockers as we have those in the break room, and the stuff is in the way and slows down productivity, blah blah blah. Whatever, I'll keep my valuables on me. We all agreed to not store our things in the closet anymore for fear of being written up. Fast forward about a month. I'm going through my shift close duties and get to the part where I sweep the floor behind and around the service desk. I head into the broom closet to retrieve the broom and dustpan, and what am I greeted with? A purse and a grocery bag. Upon further inspection, I recognize the purse to be Karen's faux designer purse. You have got to be kidding me. I check the grocery bag tied to it, and it has 10 packs of cigarettes in it. 10! Nobody buys 10 packs of assorted cigarettes, so obviously my snooping does not end there. I check the date codes and find all the cigarettes are just barely expired and unable to be sold. I'm not sure if it carries over to other places, but in my state, expired cigarettes cannot be sold and must be returned to the proper vendor. Some federal law about a controlled substance or something. I don't know, I'm a teenager. I check the receipt in the bag and notice one line of general merchandise at $1. Times 10. At my store, we used a general merchandise input with the custom price to charge for items with a damaged barcode and couldn't be scanned into the system. I checked the cashier ID at the top, and who else but the big K-Dog herself. So, she sold herself 10 packs of expired cigarettes at $1 a pack. Mind you, these cigarettes sell for about $8 to $10 per pack normally, not to mention the crime of selling expired cigarettes. That just sounds like stealing, but with extra steps. So I put everything back the way it was and start sweeping while fuming the entire time trying to figure out what I'm going to do about this, when my saving grace descends from the heavens. The sweet little front-end manager, who's basically a mom to all the cashiers, strolls over to have a chat and ask how my shift is going. I decide it's now or never. Not fully understanding the gravity of the situation at the time, I go through the small talk for a bit before I just casually lay it on the store mom that I saw Karen's purse in the broom closet tied to a bag of cigarettes and thought it was kind of weird. All the while remaining innocent and curious while I wanted to scream about Karen being a thief. To my absolute delight, this comment immediately furrowed Stir Mom's brow and she came around to investigate. She opened the bag of smokes, and her eyes went wide when she realized what I had realized only minutes before her. She was obviously pissed at this point, but calmly and quietly told me not to mention this to anyone else. I had a crap-eating customer service grin on at this point, and agreed. Almost an hour has passed when I see Store Mom, bag in hand, go upstairs to the conference room, followed by the bigwig corporate loss prevention guy, followed by a straight-up police officer. Oh my God. At this point, I'm sweating bullets for Karen. I hear Karen get summoned to the conference room over the employee walkie-talkie system. I see her trot up the stairs with a confused look on her face as she glances over at me, still wearing my fake customer service smile. About another hour goes by and my shift is about to end, but you better believe I am not going to miss the end of this. All of a sudden, I hear absolute stomping coming down the steps from the conference room. It's Karen. Her face is beet red, Tears in eyes, an expression that is the epitome of rage. And she's looking at me, staring into my very soul. Let me tell you what, if looks could kill, I would have been splattered all over the walls of that service desk. She's coming right for me, maintaining eye contact, and at this point, I'm genuinely frightened, but I keep my well-honed customer service mask on and stare right back. She comes behind the desk and stops a few feet from me, just menacingly staring at me. I can basically hear the blood trying to rip from her veins. We both stood there for mere seconds, but it felt like an absolute eternity. She turns, opens the closet, grabs her purse, and leaves the store. That's the last time I saw Karen. She must have even moved away because this town ain't exactly big enough for the two of us, if you catch my drift. I pestered Store Mom about what happened, but she didn't want to disclose much information about the situation, but did mention she was at least charged with retail theft and made passing comments about how she would never be able to work in a retail setting again. Meh, good enough for me. The grocery store was a happier place. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed that first story. Before we get into the next couple of stories, if you guys could please do me a huge favor and hit that like button down below. Really does help the video out. And make sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already so you never miss any future videos. Alright, this next post is titled, Why You Should Always Be Nice to Potential Hires. My wife and I moved to our current city back in 2013. The standards for my wife's job here are different than the standards back home. She has an associate's degree and most employees wanted a bachelor's degree. However, nothing could stop her and she kept putting in applications. One day, one of the employers she had sent applications to called her back. However, it was not to tell her she had gotten the job. Instead, it was the manager telling her how unprofessional it was of her to put in for positions that were obviously above her. In fact, I'm going to delete your email from our system. Please don't apply anymore. It's just a waste of our time. I'll send you a letter since you just can't seem to follow directions in my emails. My wife, after she got over the initial shock, asked the manager for her name. I don't see why it matters, but Ivanka Tulip. My wife said thank you and continued her job hunt. Sure enough, she got the letter in the mail asking her not to apply anymore, citing inability to follow clear directions. My wife held on to this letter. I told her to throw it away, but she insisted on keeping it. Eventually, my wife landed a job at one of the biggest employers in the city. Not only that, but this employer was the main supply of business to the employer that was so rude to my wife. Well, my wife is an extremely precocious and hardworking person and eventually got her bachelor's and then became the manager over her crew. One of the manager's responsibilities was to decide who to send business to. My wife told her boss about the letter and what happened and used that as justification that if this is how a business treats potential hires, then they really shouldn't be trusted with their business. Her boss honestly probably did not care very much and just let my wife do what she does. Honestly, my wife is kind of a badass and it wouldn't surprise me if her boss just gave her whatever it took to keep her happy. Wouldn't you know it, the rude employer's business went way down. In fact, my wife would only give them business if they were the last ones who could be called. This led to the most awesome meeting my wife has had this year. You see, to improve relations, the crappy employer set up a meeting with my wife and my wife's boss and the crappy business's top management. They needed this meeting to show how much value they could add. The day of the meeting comes and everyone introduces themselves. Finally, Mrs. Tulip says she is the manager and how nice it was to meet everyone. That's when my wife said, "Excuse me, I just want to be certain. Are you Mrs. Ivanka Tulip?" Ivanka says, "Yes, that's me." My wife says, "Oh, excellent. I am so happy to finally meet you in person." Thinking she had an in with my wife, Mrs. Tulip was over the moon. My wife let them carry on and tell her about how much value they could add to the business and how they could really help out my wife's employer. This is when my wife says, "Well, thank you, but unfortunately I feel that we can't really give business to an employer who we feel has some ethical issues that need to be addressed." Big boss from Bad Employer says, "Excuse me, we were not made of any ethical issues. What are you talking about?" That's when my wife brought out the letter that was signed by Mrs. Tulip. My wife then tells them that if they treat potential hires this way, then it was an ethics issue for my wife and it would be very hard for my wife to give them business. Since she had concerns about the welfare of the business, she couldn't approve any more business to go to bad business than absolutely necessary. Mrs. Tulip turned white, and you could hear a pin drop on the other side of the table. My wife thanked them for their time, but apologized and went back to her work. We don't know if anything ever happened to Mrs. Tulip, but that business has since downsized and has gotten a reputation for being a poor choice to send business throughout my wife's organization. Alright, this next post is titled, Fire My Boss Unethically? Enjoy paying for my unemployment benefits. This took place more than a decade ago. I started working for a small branch of a company and got along really well with my boss, the branch manager, and used to compare him to Michael Scott, not to his face. I would have been Jim Halpert in this scenario. After working there for a while, my boss was approached with an awesome offer to go manage a bigger branch a few hours away. This was because the owner wanted to place his son as the branch manager of a small location and needed to vacate a position to do so. My boss graciously turned down the offer. His kids had just started at their new schools and he didn't want to uproot them again. He'd relocated to take the current position. This was not taken well by our corporate office, but they couldn't fire him for it. Not directly. A few weeks later, I saw our office manager, a lady nobody in the office liked, in my boss's office filing paperwork. Or so it seemed, which was odd but not alarming. The next week, my boss was going to be on vacation and all the office staff had to attend a meeting for non-salaried employees at the corporate headquarters. While we were at the corporate thing, our office manager handed out new office keys to all of us, 3 that were there. My boss was on vacation and salaried. I asked, why are we getting new keys? And she said it was because someone lost theirs. None of us had lost our keys. We were all sitting together and could easily confirm this. So I texted my boss to ask him and he had no clue what she was up to. I got a bad feeling about what was happening. I called him after the meeting and told him to come by my house Sunday when he got back from out of town. I explained that I was 95% certain they were planning to fire him on Monday. I didn't know what the reason, I just had a gut feeling. I said it was too bad because if he was fired, I wouldn't want to work there anymore knowing that they would do shady stuff like that. He jokingly said that he should fire me first so I could go on unemployment. I laughed and told him that he should write me a termination notice, and then if he doesn't get fired on Monday, it would just be between us. But if he does get fired, I could take it to the unemployment office and have proof I was fired for something that would make me eligible for benefits. So we did, and he was fired Monday for misfiling paperwork of some sort, and I definitely did not go back to work. They tried calling me in, and I told them that my boss had fired me already. I took the proof with me to the unemployment office and was good to go, until they, the former employer, disputed my claim. I had a hearing on the phone with the unemployment office and my corporate HR person. HR said, he wasn't fired. The paperwork he submitted with his claim isn't the right paperwork. It should have come from HR, not his manager. The unemployment office said, why did the manager not do that then? Where is he? He no longer works for this company. Why did he leave? He was fired. The unemployment office says, why was he fired? HR mumbles, for doing paperwork incorrectly. Unemployment then says, well, that is hardly the fault of the terminated employee. How is he to know that the paperwork is invalid that is coming from their supervisor? They told my HR that they could rehire me or not, but my claim was valid. They couldn't rehire me because they had already filled the position. So I got to collect unemployment for a while before moving on to my next job. My former boss is doing well now, it seems, and I don't feel bad at all. For the record, it is very likely that they would have invented a way of firing me after they got rid of my boss. Had they done that, they would have made it certain that my termination was such that I wouldn't be eligible for unemployment. I took that power away from them by getting fired preemptively. I am also positive that when I saw the office manager in his office while he was away, she was arranging the setup for him to be fired. And then down in the comments down below, someone commented, every Dwight believes he's a Jim. And then someone else commented, that's assistant regional manager to you. And then OP says, identity theft is not a joke. Alright, that's going to wrap up today's ProRevenge video. I hope you guys enjoyed those 3 stories today. If you did, definitely drop a comment down below letting me know what your favorite story was. Hit that like button, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss any future videos. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next time.